Yes, guys, hello and welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel. I hope everyone is doing very well. I say welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel, but we're back on audio podcast as well now. So if you prefer to just listen to the show rather than watching on your TV or your smartphone, you can find us over at Spotify and Apple Pods as well, if that is of interest. But anyway, enough of the promo that I like to plug here and there, because you guys know I like to keep it to a minimal and not be a pest. But we are joined alongside Frank Thomas Frank's AI son. I'm going to start calling you now Frank. And Ryan's probably sitting there thinking he's got to be on a wind up that he's called Frank Thomas, but that is actually his name. But Frank, how you doing, mate?
I'm all good. As always, I'm excited. We got a good one planned, so should be good.
Absolutely. And what amazing support last night on the video with journalist and commentator Ben Jacobs. Thank you all for tuning in. Over 10,000 views on that video and live stream, and really appreciate all the kind comments and the likes and subscribes. And keep smashing the likes and subscribes if you do want daily transfer updates, daily tactical breakdowns, and daily Spurs content on your screens and in your ears, as I said, on audio pods. But we're a minute in. I like to ramble on, but we are joined alongside Ryan Hurst, who is a tactical analyst. I don't know. I've just given you a name there, Ryan. I've given you a title, and you might not even like tactical analyst, but I've been watching his videos. They're absolutely brilliant. We'll show you his YouTube channel later. But Ryan, mate, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, mate. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
All good, thank you. All good. Good to have you on, and we're going to be talking some tactics, some breakdowns, how Spurs may be lining up next season with potentially Morgan Gibbs-White as a part of that. Can we play with a fluid back three? All these different questions. And guys, if you have any tactical specific questions, get them down in the comment section below. But let's get into things. We will do a little transfer update video halfway through, so stick in for and stay tuned for that. But Ryan has done a few little breakdowns that we think are going to be very, very interesting for you guys today. So I'm going to hand the mic to Ryan, and we're going to talk about the different ways in which Gibbs-White fits in to Tottenham Hotspur, because there are some question marks about whether he can play the 8 or whether he can play the 10 or whether he can play as a second striker. But I think Ryan's going to talk to us about all the different ways he can fit in. Oh, I think Ryan's having some technical issues. So, do you know what? What we're going to do? What we're going to do is we are going to flip straight back into Frank's tactics. There's some audio and technical issues going on today. We understand what happens. You know, it happened to me the other day as well. But Frank, let's go with your tactical breakdown then of Gibbs-White and how he fits in. And you've picked out a couple of screenshots from the Nottingham Forest Brighton game, I believe, last season. What do you make of these then?
Yes, so there's 4 screenshots. There's 2 on this one, and we'll get the other 2 up in a minute. And they're all from, I think, the first 12 or 13 minutes of their game when they beat them 7-0. I'm pretty sure it was that one, the 7-0. And basically, it's kind of what I've been talking about for the last sort of week or two since it's sort of been knowledge that Tottenham won him. If you look in that top one, first of all, right, he's practically part of that double pivot. That's Danilo, I think, next to him, and that's Elliot Anderson in front of him. Anderson's the one that's been given the freedom to push on, and Gibbs-White's happy to, in somewhat sort of the channel, sit there, but he's still part of that deeper lying midfield. Part of midfield, should I say. So that's kind of when I've said before that I think Gibbs-White can play that role and be part of that double pivot with Bergvall or with Bentancur or Archie Gray or whoever it be if a new one comes in. That's kind of a proof that this is, we've seen that. Again, same in that bottom one. He's probably the furthest wide of the 3. Again, looking to run the channels and do that sort of stuff, which we know he can do well. But yeah, again, he's one of the deeper 2 of the 3 in midfield, and so that fluidity that he can do that. And then if we look at the next 2 photos, so these 2 show well that he can sit in that role, and then instantly it's the switch. So that top one, yeah. So in the first 11 minutes, all of these photos, that top one is a little while after the first 2. He's out wide. He's running the channels again. He's seen that space. He's moved into it, and he's got a chance to do something with it. Again, the bottom one underneath. He enters that 10 area. Danilo and Anderson's now the deepest of the three. And so this is largely down to just general intelligence of Gibbs-White, of Danilo, and of Elliot Anderson, but also down to a system that was fluid. And Thomas Frank has, builds the idea and builds his system on that it has to be fluid. It has to be fluid. It has to be that you can take any player out and put any player in and the whole system won't crumble. And largely we saw that last season was something that was an issue. You took Christian Romero out, took Mickey van der Ven out, and it was so reliant on those two certainly that there'd be a problem. Or you took whoever out, Kudus out. It always felt like there was catching up to do if you took someone out of Ange's system. Whereas the idea in this system is that you can take someone out and it doesn't change. And so it's kind of the same as Nottingham Forest. They're so well drilled, and these teams that are well drilled can play like that. And so Gibbs-White is part of a fluid midfield, fine, but the general intelligence that he knows, right? I mean, that bottom one is again in the first 4 minutes. So in the first 4 minutes, we've seen him playing deep on the right hand side, deep in the middle of the pitch, and now quite far forward, almost as a second striker. And so that general just intelligence to know this is when I've got to go, because I know that the other two next to me are going to sit. That I think, it's going to be a really interesting addition to the midfield.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like you said, centre attacking mid there, right wing, has played left wing. Playing in the 8, deep lying. So much versatility there. I love that word, but very interesting stuff. Frank, I'm thinking we'll put a pause on the tactical bits, and this is going to be an absolute nightmare for me to do timestamps today. But guys, I always put the timestamps into the description. But let's go into the Tottenham transfer news, because I can already see that it makes more sense to start talking about the latest updates. And of course, it was Thomas Frank's first press conference as Tottenham manager today, and there was a load of different quotes that came out from this. One of which saying he's very proud to sit in this chair, really stating his pride of being Tottenham Hotspur manager. Obviously, really does feel like the start of a new era at White Hart Lane. Really does feel like the start of something big, hopefully. I'm always optimistic when a new manager comes in. There is always a new manager bounce. We saw it with Ange Postecoglou, where we were top of the table for the first 10 or 11 games of the season. And then obviously that Chelsea game happened. He's also said we need to be able to compete in all 4 competitions. That has to be the aim. And I think he also went on to say, like, the last time that happened at Tottenham was around 2019 under Mauricio Pochettino, when we played, obviously, Champions League football quite consistently. And I don't remember a time, other than maybe under Antonio Conte, where we were in the Champions League actually pushing on and really doing something in the league as well. I mean, we were pushing for top 4 that season. I believe we did get top 4 on one of the years under Conte when we beat Arsenal, and I think we won 3-0. But, good to hear that is in the works, that is in the plans. Also, he said he wants to add more trophies, Frank, more trophies, to a club that's only won 2 trophies in the last 17 years. But, at the end of the day, clearly that is the direction of the board, as we've heard from Daniel Levy and Vinay about, the optimism around hopefully challenging for Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. What do you make of those first 3 quotes, mate?
Yeah, I mean, the first things first, I put out a tweet earlier on that it felt like, you're almost cheating on Ange a little bit. And this sounds, but I'm so on board with the whole Thomas Frank thing, and I'm really excited about it, and it's brilliant. But it felt so. And again, he spoke brilliantly well, Thomas Frank, and I love the guy. But it felt so wrong not waiting for like an Ange anecdote about something about when he was 10 years old and how it's got him to this point, and this amazing story, and we all buy into it. It felt wrong not waiting for that and reading that today. But in terms of what Thomas Frank said, he was. I think you got to change the name in that comment. Just on a side note, I think I've put the thought into your head of Ange. Um,
Well, no, I just wanted to know everyone's thoughts on Angie's interview 2 years ago.
But yeah, it's positive. You know, it's he said about you have to be brave. I'm not sure if we got that in here, but he said that the whole idea of his philosophy and his mentality is being brave and being forward and being, you know, wanting to push on and wanting to drive, and that is solely what this is. You know, that he wants to add more. That when you win, you know, that hunger and that desire to win more grows. You know, I mean, the feeling I got from when we won the Europa League, I'm now more desperate than I probably ever was to win something again, because I that period of that, certainly that week and since then, has been amazing, and I want to keep feeling that. And I'm sure inside the club that will be the same thing. I mean, Levy said it, whether or not you know, buy what he says, but he said it, and I think that will be the same thing, you know. And so I think it'll be hopefully a thing that Ange will be remembered for a really long time, because I think being the one that broke that hoodoo and got that monkey off their backs allowed them to hopefully push on and go, we can win things, we can get over the line, we've got good enough players to do it, we're all good enough players, and so we're gonna get over the line, and we're gonna now start winning things and actually competing. And so having Thomas Frank there, who is going to hopefully drive that forward, I was quite excited by the quotes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you said, I've still got Angie in my head. That's an absolute stinker, that one. It's not been the best 10 minutes of the stream we've ever done. I'll be honest. Have technical issues and the fact my brain's melting in this heat. It's all got. It just proves we're human, right? It just proves we're human. Thomas Frank on the signing of Kudus. He said it's a great signing. Well, I mean, I'd be horrified to see him not say that. But obviously, we saw the footage of, you know, Frank and Kudus, little hand, high five. That was absolutely unbelievable connection. And yeah, excited to see what Kudus is going to do for us, because obviously the talk's all been about Morgan Gibbs-White and the signing of Morgan Gibbs-White, hopefully going through. But, you know, Mohamed Kudus is one to be really excited about. And Frank's also said the two top players, Son and Romero, and obviously them being linked away from the club from various, like we discussed with Ben Jacobs yesterday, potentially Son going to Saudi, potentially Romero going to Atletico Madrid. Hopefully that's been shut down. Frank, sorry, I think you had something to add on this.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that he said he made quite an interesting point about these two as well, which isn't on there, but he said separately that they're both going to feature for 45 minutes tomorrow.
Okay.
But he said it as in they're going to play in separate halves, because they're both going to captain a half each, but they're only going to play 45. And so I'm going to be very interested to see if it's going to be literally a mix and match team, and if it's going to be the first half's going to be a total mix, and the second half, or if it's going to be the first half is going to be the first team, and the second half is going to be the bench sort of players, or the ones that, and so maybe Sonny might not be part of that first team, as we kind of spoken about a lot. Is it going to be Tell? Is it going to be him? Odebert's there. What kind of path they're going to go down? Because I imagine Romero will be part of that first team. He will be. So that will be interesting. Will it be a mix and match? Because they're obviously playing different halves. Will it be a mix and match where, you know, Solanke and Johnson are going to play in one half, and Son and, you know, Kudus going to play in the other, and so it is no first team at all? Or is there going to be a real definitive split that you're going to know Son isn't in the very first or forefront of his mind for the first game of the season?
Yeah, interesting. They're probably going to captain a half. I didn't actually expect to see sort of the top players play against Reading, but, you know, maybe it's going to be more of a test and more of a, you know, at the end of the day, it's Thomas Frank's first match in charge, and it's going to be interesting to see what lineup he does put out, whether that's full of, you know, younger players or, you know, rotational players that aren't really going to be established as much in the first team. It's going to be interesting to see that, and I'm looking forward to seeing, well, maybe his thoughts on Son or Romero as captain. Welcoming in Jonathan. Jason saying hopefully Gibbs-White announcement tonight or early tomorrow. However, Spurs don't really do business at the weekend. No one does business at the weekend other than if you're playing football. Normally, so you would think it would be late tonight. I can tell you we are not announcing Gibbs-White tonight. I'm telling you that. But I agree with your point here. Very confident it's done as per Ben Jacobs on the stream yesterday. Sakil, Tottenham must sign Gibbs-White, a defensive mid and a striker. Well, we'll talk about something about defensive players in a minute. Thomas Frank was also asked about Morgan Gibbs-White, as we've just been discussing, and he said, "I won't speak about players from outside the club." And he even said that you guys, the media, know me very well. I never speak about players from other clubs, although unless it's on his sort of terms. We've seen the clips of him rating Kulusevski and Maddison and going through the lineup. When we played Brentford last season, there's a clip of him in a press conference saying, don't underestimate Tottenham, even though they've got lots of injuries, because they have a very, very good team. And he was always very keen on the Tottenham team. Some reports saying that Gibbs-White is happy to stay if the bid failed. Well, let's just see how that plans out, because, guys, I don't really have much news on Morgan Gibbs-White because nothing's really happened, has it, Frank? Not really. I mean, there's a few murmurs here and there, not necessarily tier one, rumours as well. Guys joining. I can see the numbers building. There's 50 or 60 of you watching now. Make sure you smash the like button, guys, because it does help us grow. I can see only 6 likes on the video, which is nuts. So please do help us get that one up. And also, if you do want to put in a super chat to support the channel, that is now a feature on Spurs Related. So we do appreciate any sort of support. Obviously, completely optional. We understand that it's cost of living crisis going on and everything else. So we don't expect it, but we do appreciate all your support, especially with the likes, the subscribes, the comments, etc. But yeah, super chats are available now. So do stick them in if you do want to create a talking point on the channel. Here we go. Right. This is the news today. Frank, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So it's a story that when I saw it pop up, I was seriously excited by, actually. As long as it doesn't mean what I guess you think it might mean, in that Romero is going. First of all, everything we've kind of read about Romero and when we spoke to Ben last night, and just the general news is that Romero is probably going to stay. Now, maybe they're anticipating that Romero is going to leave next year with the movers, or even, it wouldn't shock me, and we've said this before, and we'll come on to this hopefully if Ryan manages to come back, that that there is a possibility and a real strong possibility that Tottenham are going to want to play 3 at the back. And so with Zabani, I'm going to stick with that. If I get pelters for it being wrong, then I'm sorry. Correct me in the chat. But Zabani's one that I've really enjoyed watching this year. I feel like he's come on a level this year. Certainly since Dean Huijsen was playing with him as well. Dean Howson, or again, pronunciation's not my forte. But yeah. So since those two have been playing together, I mean, I went and watched the game, a Bournemouth game. They played Chelsea. Don't ask. Long story. They played Chelsea in about January time.
Chelsea in your spare time, Frank? Is that what I just heard?
I'm going to keep quiet. But I'm a Tottenham fan. But it was a long story. But I went to go and watch that in January, and I remember messaging a mate when I came out, and I said those two are one of the best pairings in the Premier League. The guys are unbelievable. Howson's obviously now gone to Real Madrid for £50 million. And Zabani's one that Tottenham were always linked to from Shakhtar before he went to Bournemouth. They probably should have looked to have done it at the time. They didn't. They missed out. He went to Bournemouth, and now he's going to cost a lot more. I guess that's the approach they're now taking with Kudus and Voskovich. They're trying to get him in first. But Zabani's one that I'm hoping that the idea of it isn't a Romero replacement. That would be a concern, because I don't want Romero to go. If the idea is to have him in as well, and have the 3 of them, then having a back line of Udogie, Porro, Van der Ven, Romero, and Zabani is quite sensational, and with an actual structure to it in terms of a coach that's teaching them how to defend and not concede 65 goals a season. Tottenham could be really tough to score goals against next season, because that is a seriously good back line. So maybe, as it says here, PSG, does it actually say it there? But PSG, the article went on to say that PSG wants Zabani. It's whether or not they're going to actually make an offer in the next few days. It depends on that. So whether or not PSG want Romero, and they take Romero and we take Zabani. But if Zabani was one that happened, that would be that would be one that I'd be quite excited about.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting player. One that we will definitely do an offline video about, maybe delving in for 10, 15 minutes. So smash a little comment if you want to see a little Zabarnyi player sort of focus and analysis, if you need to know more about him, because clearly Frank has been watching him at Stamford Bridge by the sounds of things. So definitely a talking to after this stream on that one. But let me also know your guys' thoughts on Zabarnyi as a player. Do you know much about him, and do you think he would be a good addition to Tottenham should that one progress? As Jack's saying, get Frank out, and we like to keep it lighthearted here. You know, while still sticking to the talking points. Jonathan's saying we're creating a cup team and a league team. I do agree. It's good that we've got the depth now. You know, there's still a few more pieces of the puzzle to fit, but it is promising, guys. It is promising. Let's be honest. As A1 Synergies noticed, I have had a haircut. I do think it's a little bit short. I'll be honest, guys. I like to be transparent with you, but appreciate the kind words. And Zab is top shelf. Love it. Love it, Rodney. Thanks for those people that always do come back and watch us live, every single video. I have to appreciate, I do appreciate you guys massively. I have to shout you guys out. You're absolute legends. Keep smashing the like, keep smashing the subscribe, keep dinging those notification bells on, because we're going to do a video on Zabarnyi, no doubt, Frank, after this. Unfortunately, it looks like Ryan won't be able to join us back for tactical analysis. So those that are looking for the tactical analysis, don't fret. We're gonna do a bit of breakdown, Frank and I, on the screenshots that Ryan sort of dragged out. So we will get to that as well. If you do want to learn more about how Morgan Gibbs-White could fit into Tottenham in the different ways, obviously Frank's already started that. Rodney Trotter's saying, I'm a Bournemouth local, born and bred. Zab is a good as anyone you can get. He's up there with Hoysen, which is what you said, Frank. Out of the two, you actually think he's better, which is interesting. Jonathan Mills is saying, to be honest, you two are the best out there, honest and to the point. Perfect, don't change that. Really, honestly, really do appreciate those types of comments. It does, make it worthwhile doing if people are enjoying the content. Suki was saying, Rafael Leao also being linked because we need to sell Son. Yeah, maybe. I don't see Rafael Leao happening, to be honest with you. Nice one, Jack. So, gotta say, interesting on Zabarnyi, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you're watching on repeat. The next update, we should probably change the title of the video to transfer updates, is Xavi Simons. And he wants to leave Leipzig, according to the German news outlet Bild. He wants to leave Leipzig this summer. Leipzig would demand well over 50 million euros, and that Simons has now bought in agent Ali Barat, and he is set to approach London clubs on Xavi's behalf. That's a bit woolly, Frank. Like, London clubs, is that Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, or is, you'd assume it's that, but it's still a bit vague, isn't it? What do you think?
It is. I think Fabrizio Romano, and I might be wrong, so I haven't got the thing. I think he might have said about an hour later that Arsenal and Chelsea were the ones that they were originally going to offer him to. So kind of makes this whole probably next 2-minute segment irrelevant, because he's going to end up at Arsenal or something. So, but having said that, I read recently that they'd probably take, that says 50 million euros. I read they'd take about 50 million quid. 50 to 55 million quid, which would be a good deal for a player. As I've said before, he wound me up when England played last year, played against Holland. He got on my nerves, and so I think he kind of is quite low in my estimations because of that. But he's obviously a talented footballer. He's a good player. He's one that I haven't seen enough of, but everything that I have seen is positive. I mean, he's one that sort of, I remember him breaking through when he was about 12 in the Barcelona academy, and all these different accounts sort of got hold of these videos of him, one of those lot. So he's obviously a good player. I think he'll leave this summer. I don't know if he'll come to us. I think it's probably unlikely. If Sonny goes, then I think there could be a chance. As again, Xavi Simons is one that can play in the middle, around the left, probably on the right, and also probably actually play a little bit deeper as well. And almost, I'm not so players an 8 and that sort of. He's done that before, so. Yeah, you kind of, it would make sense if Sonny went. But for now, if Sonny's going to stay, which Thomas Frank's comments today suggest that he's still comfortable with him being there and he's happy with him there, I think for now that's unlikely, unless it obviously points towards that Gibbs-White wasn't going to happen. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, good point. And hopefully, depending how you feel about whether Sonny should stick around, we will have more of a clear idea in the next sort of week or two. And maybe after Frank's seen some of the players on Saturday, that might be enough. But guys, interested to know your thoughts on the game tomorrow against Reading. Are any of you going as a first question? And secondly, what do you think we can expect? Because it's a bit of a free hit. It's a friendly. It's who knows who we're going to start? Who knows how it's going to play out? But guys, also, if you want to see a tactical breakdown and I guess match review of that Reading game on Sunday morning, give us a little comment saying you want to see that, and we will deliver that for you on Sunday. Because I think it would be a nice way to see how Thomas Frank's first game as manager has gone and what he's delivering and how it plays out and who he's. It'd be good to sort of digest that a little bit more. And obviously, while you can't look too much into a friendly, it would be good to assess. Frank, any other news that we may have missed or that's come out since we've been live? Because that can happen in the transfer window.
I was just having a look. There was a couple of Thomas Frank quotes. If you give me 1 second.
Okay.
It might be worth reading the chat for a second whilst I get that.
Sure.
Up.
Yeah. Sure. So Jonathan Mills is saying we haven't gone for him already, so I don't think we will go for him. I believe this is talking about Xavi Simons. Lookman is going to Inter Milan. All agreed, says Simon. Tony Young saying, nice Barnet. I'm getting a lot of Barnet comments. I do appreciate it, guys. It's either tongue-in-cheek or it's like it's my barber smashed it and I might have to, give him the feedback. So, yeah, appreciate all that. But while Frank's getting that quote, if you have just joined, just running through it very quickly, Thomas Frank saying he's very proud and that he wants to be able to compete in 4 competitions. I think that's really, really key. I think that's a really, sensible way of looking at it. He wants to add to the trophies. He loves Kudus. And he says that Son and Romero are top players and that he's never going to speak about players from outside the club. So there you go. There's your little 10-second breakdown on that. Frank, have you got the additional quotes from Thomas Frank?
Yeah, I've got some bits up. So this is in the last sort of 25, 30 minutes. They've all sort of come through. So it's easier to go through. So it says, this Thomas Frank on getting the chance to coach Archie Gray and Brennan Johnson after failing to sign them both at Brentford. He said, definitely good to see Archie Gray and Brennan. It was not a secret at the time. It's very good to work with them. 2 fantastic footballers and 2 very good people. So I think that's really interesting, actually, because we've all kind of forgotten the pair of them a little bit, actually. We've forgotten Johnson because we've got Kudus. We've got this shiny new toy that's so exciting and it's cost us all this money. And we forget that Johnson was our top goal scorer last season. He obviously wasn't the most confident in what Andrew's asking to be in this touchline winger. But as we've said, in this system with these inside forwards where they're getting into the box and Johnson's someone who I actually think he's a lot better of footballer than we sometimes give him credit for, in that not all the time. And sometimes he gets the ball and he doesn't run at people and he's not, fearless enough. And that's a frustration. But then he does things sometimes. And like I use the goal we scored, Timo Werner scored at Manchester City in the Cup this season. And that just the first one that comes to my head. We've done it a few times. I think West Ham at home, there was one as well, where down that right-hand side and a little flick around the corner, a little sort of quick flicks and things. He's a technically good player. And so Johnson, I think he will use, and I think he'll love. And Archie Gray again, is another one. We've said the whole time we need a 6. Maybe Gray is the 6 he wants. He nearly bought him last year for 45 million, which is a lot of money for Brentford to go out and splash on a player. I think it would have been their record. I can't think of anyone else that would have been more. I know that the striker was near enough the Brazilian guy last year.
Evan Nilsson.
That was Bournemouth. Who's the Brazilian one? Is it? I can't think of his name. Either way, big Brazilian guy plays up front that got injured.
For Forest?
For Brentford.
For Brentford, yes. His name is. I called it the other day, and then I always forget. Is it Jack?
I can't think of it.
I want to say it's. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten. Igor. Yeah, you go. Igor.
Yeah.
Igor Thiago. Thomas. He said
Yeah.
Thomas. He thinks he's got your surname, Frank. We're all as bad as each other. With Frank's tactics change, he will do things with Spurs that nobody's seen before. Big words. I was just saying, £45 for Spurs play is a rip-off for 5 friendlies. I thought, what do you actually have to pay to watch friendlies? That's crazy. Why don't they just put the friendlies on for free and then people might subscribe for the other? Anyway. Yeah. Ronnie Trott's saying Kudus is different gravy. It's going to be tough for Johnson to start ahead of him. He's going to be a fan favourite. That's it. Igor Tiago. Nice shirt, Frank. Who have you got on the back?
I've got Harry Kane on the back. It was 2015 or 2016. This shirt, and it's got Kane on the back. It was one of my several vintage purchases over the last couple of months.
Nice. Anyway, let's. Sorry, Frank. You've got through the other?
There's one or two more little bits. He says he was asked about why he joined the club. Why he was at Brentford. Spurs sacked 5 managers themselves, and he was asked basically why he was so confident in joining a club that have this track record. You know, we sacked Pochettino just after getting to the Champions League final. We sacked Mourinho just a few days before a cup final, rightly or wrongly. We sacked
wrongly.
We sacked what's his face, Ange, after the Europa League final, and so you know there's a bad track record. And he basically said, "I like to challenge myself." He said, "I like to challenge myself. I have the privilege of never being sacked before, and that is one of the reasons I took the job. I want to get a little bit more risk into my daily life. Coming to a big club, there are greater pressures. We need to perform because it's me, it's the staff, the players, the staff, and everyone. We need to do that together. I like the ambitions. Everything I do, every decision I've made so far is for the long term. It's not about surviving one game or 1 year or 18 months or whatever the average is. It's about doing it for the long run," which is exciting. It's another exciting. You know, it's similar to kind of what we heard about Ange quite often. It's that sort of thing, but no, it's exciting. It's yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, let us know what you think on these Thomas Frank quotes read by Frank Thomas. Get it in the comments below. Make sure you are smashing like. There's 60 or 70 of you watching live. Let's do a little bit of tactical analysis. Obviously, bit of a shame Ryan couldn't join us. He was having some technical issues, and he will be back on the channel, guys. So don't worry about that. But you know, he's sort of done the homework. We can build on these points, Frank, and take you guys through the tactical analysis. I'd be interested also, guys. You know, keeping it real with you lot. You know, do you enjoy the tactical analysis videos, or do you prefer the transfer videos? Maybe I'll do a little poll in the chat. But let's talk about the ways that Gibbs-White can fit into the team. And obviously, this identifies that potentially Spurs need a number 6 to sit alongside Lucas Bergvall in the 2 in midfield, with the 1 of Gibbs-White into the 10 position, with Solanke up top, Tell and Kudus on the left and right. Obviously, that could be Son and Johnson, or depending if they stay, you know, Solomon and obviously Odebear, he's sticking around, could be on the wings as well. Obviously, already told you there 3 different wingers for each side. Frank, what do you make of this? Pretty straightforward. Obviously, Gibbs-White fitting into a 10 with 2 behind him.
Yeah, so this is obviously a screen grab that Ryan pulled up and would probably analyse better than I will. Certainly the next sort of parts of it, because you know these were his ideas and how this might work. But basically, we've and when I've done this in the last sort of week or so, I've really honed in on that. I think Gibbs-White might play in that double pivot. I've said I think he can play elsewhere and whatever, but I think the double pivot is what's kind of calling for Gibbs-White. But Ryan's gone down a different path, and actually we're going to use him as a 10. You know, you've got options, but Kudus, Thomas Frank said today, Kudus still a bit of a way away. James Maddison's only just back on grass, and so you know, in under a month's time, on the 16th of August, in our first league game of the season against Burnley, Gibbs-White might be the only fully fit number 10, and so or player that can play in the number 10 role, and so he might well play there. And so if we look at, I think it's the next slide. 1 second. on there. Yeah, so this is kind of basically how we might look to line up, and this is kind of, as we say, the switch to the back three. I saw some quite interesting points today I was reading, and where this links in that they might use Van der Ven as a left back at points this season. I'm not suggesting they will, but they might look to do it, and then they might start something like, if they sign Zabani or they use Kevin Danso, say they get Zabani just for argument's sake, and Romero stays, they might look to start sometimes, maybe go without Udogie or have Udogie further up to start and sit in a way, and then switch. So then you've got this back three, because Van der Ven, Romero, and Zabani or whoever is a hell of a back three. Udogie is probably more defensively minded than Pedro Porro is naturally, and so you're probably going to see Porro, if you look at a heat map from their time at Tottenham so far and what I expect next year, they're probably, Porro's, I imagine, it is marginally further forward. But the sole difference here is that number 8 in the middle, and that's kind of, well, there's two sole differences to what we've seen last year. Number one, if you line up in a 3, and this is why I really like the idea of a 3, you instantly have one person more back than you had last year. Instantly, that's the first thing. So then your 6 can have a little bit of freedom, because last year you had Romero, you had Van der Ven, and that was kind of it, because Udogie and Porro were in the middle, and Bentancur or Basuma or whoever was be out wide, and all this nonsense. It was chaotic. It was a mess. But instantly, a structured back 3 allows a little bit of freedom for the midfield, and so that number 8 in there, whoever that be, that might be Lucas Bergvall, that might be Adam Wharton, that might be Basuma, Sarr, Bentancur, whoever it be, Gibbs-White even. I mean, we've got Gibbs-White up here, so maybe not him as an example, but they have a little bit of freedom because they can sit that, and that's why I'm kind of a little bit against the idea of needing an absolute brew who just sits there and wins the ball, and why I think you can have 2 players like Bergvall and Gibbs-White. Maybe, as I say, when you go to Anfield, you might need to solidify the back line a little bit, and so that's when you need a João Paulinho or a Douglas Luiz, if João Gomez, whoever. But when you play in certain games, like at home to Burnley and these sorts of games, and even I use games like at home to teams like Manchester United, teams that are good. I'm talking separate the real elite teams to everyone else. You can play like this if you play a 3, certainly, because you have that protection behind you. So yeah, I mean that's and it's certainly an interesting way of looking at it, that if they are going to set up with a 3, and that Gibbs-White almost becomes one of 5 attackers with Pedro Porro as well. And I think the only difference that I would make, and where, don't be wrong, the wingers, they're not solely, glued inside, but more often than not, Tell will probably be where Gibbs-White is. It's my, humble opinion, which I think probably removes that space for Gibbs-White, unless Gibbs-White, as we say, is the one that runs the channel himself, or Udogie's the one that builds up. So I think more often than not, and this is, I can't move this because it's a screenshot, but Udogie will be where Tell is, and Tell will be where Gibbs-White is, and Gibbs-White will probably be in the area where the 6 is, if that kind of makes a little bit more sense, and that 6 maybe drops a little bit deeper. So I think that's probably more likely, but that's not to suggest that this isn't, And then you look here, this is when you've got a 4 at the back. He said that if you're now, this can be either with or without the ball. In this, the goalkeeper's got the ball. You're pressing, but it's compact. Jan Vertonghen said it when Pochettino was here. He said it years ago that, I can't remember what the exact measurement was, but the distance between him and Harry Kane had to constantly be the same. If Kane moved, you moved, and you shifted in this compact group. And Thomas Frank does that. When they don't have the ball, they tend to sit in a 4-4-2. It's quite common for them. It's compact. It's probably the most compact formation you're going to have. And Gibbs-White might move into that second number 9 spot. Again, could be Tell. It could be that Gibbs-White then shifts out left. And as I say, we'll probably have a better understanding of a lot of these things, Gibbs-White or not, tomorrow. Obviously, Gibbs-White's not going to be there, but you'll get this sort of system idea. And so I'm quite excited to see, how that'll work. And so it's about learning when these guys have got press, because this Andrew system was all about, you're just going to keep running, you're going to keep going, you're going to keep pressing. And that wasn't sustainable a lot of the time. And so this is going to be different. This is about triggers. This is about, okay, when he gets the ball, or when this is what I have to do when this person moves, and this is and so he does dumb the game down. It does make it simple for people to understand, because, as I say it quite often, that it's a game that is made way too complicated sometimes. But he also needs intelligent footballers to go, I'm going to take responsibility. And Gibbs-White's going to take responsibility and go, I'm stepping up. I've got 2 behind me. I've got 3 behind them, and you dodgy Van der Ven, Romero, whoever. I can now push on and go, I'm going to press. I'm going to. So, yeah, I mean, I'm quite pro playing 3 at the back next year or next season. Whether or not that'll be something that gets used more often than not, I don't know. I would like it to be. I think there's a very big difference between playing 3 at the back and 5 at the back. I think 5 instantly sounds like you're negative and you're very defensive and you're Antonio Conte's sort of style of football. But saying that you play a 3, which is exactly the same, instantly becomes, you've got these wing backs that bomb down the lines and all this. And Pochettino did it for a large amount of time. He had Vertonghen and Alderweireld, who are both brilliant, intelligent footballers, and good on the ball and comfortable. And Davinson Sanchez, who was a little bit less comfortable on the ball, but he was an unbelievable tackler for a while, and he was an unbelievable defender. That they said he was quick, and they said to him, "You're gonna run, you're gonna chase, and you're gonna win the ball." And that back 3, certainly in those like kind of Wembley years and whatever, and it works really well.
Yeah.
So that's something I could certainly see, like with Van der Ven being the quick one, and Romero being more of a sweeper, that he's slightly more calm and controlled and comfortable on the ball. That if they had another one as a Barney, who's quite a tough tackler but also competent enough on the ball, it could be a really interesting dynamic.
100%. No, I do agree, and I think it's worth pointing out, Frank, that as per Jonathan Mills' comment here around some teams, we will play a 5 at the back and do the low block. You said about, obviously, 5 at the back sounds negative, but it's actually more positive as we look, in the last, especially in this one. That's technically, a 4 at the back, that one, but the 5 at the back, where it comes into, where the grey is there, whether that's a Danzo maybe, actually it's quite positive. Look, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players there in the attack. Udoji sort of bombing up and down the line there was almost like the wing back. Porro's even further up. And I think this one as well, maybe one point to make it, Frank, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that because this is so all out in a sense, and it obviously depends who we're playing, maybe we'll see this type of formation against Burnley when we're trying to counter a low block. But actually, that is subject to counter-attacks. I think back to the game against Bournemouth, I think it was last season or the season before, where we lost 3-2 and we absolutely capitulated at home. And it's because we played so high up with Ange. We got absolutely exploited, especially down the left-hand side. And they just absolutely sprinted at Porro. They gave him an absolute nightmare. And they managed to get through round the back so many different times. And my concern here, again, obviously these are screenshots. We can't actually point them out, unfortunately, because we haven't got Ryan here. But, do you not have a bit of a concern down that Porro side, especially when we're playing more on the front foot, that we could get counted down that side, especially?
Yeah, I do a little bit. But I think this is where the system is maybe going to be slightly different. And to what we saw, as I say, the instant difference last year is we had 2 people back at all times, more often than not. It was usually the centre halves, and maybe one of the fullbacks was doing everything in their power to get back. But usually one of the fullbacks was jogging back because it wasn't, grained in them. They had to run back half the time, it felt like. And then that was a frustration. This will be different, I think, because especially if they have an actual 6 or they have someone sitting in that 2 of those double pivots or whatever it be, that kind of square in the middle of Van der Ven, Romero, Bergvall, and the 6 is really important, because if someone's breaking down this side where Porro is and Romero steps across, Bergvall can come in. And that's the difference. That whereas last year we had Bergvall kind of where Kudus is, and we had the 6 sometimes where Udoji is, and then we had James Maddison where Gibbs-White is, or whatever it be. And that was our midfield, which was a lack of a triangle, a lack of any shape at all. Now you have this sort of system where you go, okay, there's cover. So Porro can get forward, and Udoji can get forward. And so I think that will work. yeah, so I do get the point. I think if it as I say, it's easy to say. If it's coached properly, then it should be fine because there should be enough cover in the way that Thomas Frank wants to play, to be able to prevent proper counter attacks from taking place.
Sure. No. Hopefully there is that sort of counter to the all-out attack, and the resilience is there. I think this one's quite interesting as well. Again, we haven't got. It's worth pointing out that it wasn't Frank or I that created these diagrams, so we're just trying to best explain. Ryan, who's the tactical analyst, unfortunately having a bit of tech problems, but it's interesting to see that Kudus could drop into the midfield at times on the attacks. Solanke's dropping deep to come and get the ball, but Tell is almost one of the most forward players in the lineup. Doji and Porro obviously bombing down those wings. Van der Ven and Romero very much staying back more. Anything to add on this, Frank? And obviously then it goes to this point around that six working with Bergvall or whoever it may be. If it is an Archie Gray, if it is a Bentancur, there is options there. But Kudus almost coming in as a second 10, it looks like, almost here, rather than being a right winger, and almost Tell and Solanke being a front two. So again, bit of fluidity there with maybe a 4-2-2-2, you could even call that. Not sure how likely that is, but interesting food for thought. What do you think?
Yeah, agreed. I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think what will happen is if that is what you have in Tell and you have in Brennan Johnson is players that can run and our runners can play as a second striker. And so we might see this. We might see it on the flip side where, Johnson's the one that's running on where Kudus is, and in Tell's position, who's slightly deeper, playing like kind of in line where Kudus is, that you might have Wilson Odobert maybe. I mean, he mentioned Odobert in his first interview at Tottenham. Thomas Frank did and said that he's a good player and he's an exciting player. He's one that played in the 10 for Burnley. He played in the 10 at the back end of last year, a little bit in the league when we were struggling with injuries and things. And so I think that's certainly something that we could see in that you're going to have one of the wingers is probably maybe going to drop at times. They're both going to be inside, but one of them might drop. Kudus of the two wingers in this scenario is probably more likely to do that because he can play in that 10 role. Tell's probably more of a runner on playing as almost a second striker. But yeah,
Tell also played. Sorry. Tell also played a lot up front for Bayern when he did get his run in. Cutting in from the left normally, but as almost the striker. So yeah, I think this naturally makes sense. And Kudus, like you said, can play in the 10 as well. Interesting if Kudus and Gibbs-White might link up well. Obviously, if Gibbs-White actually finally does get announced. And the final one was more around sort of looks like more, a progression on this, but how these are the passing lanes and the ways which Gibbs-White and Kudus could drop back and receive the ball from a Bergvall, as you can see from the yellow arrows. Solanke also sort of getting into the box, but also dropping deep to receive. Tell really like playing really high up on that left-hand side and really getting supported by Udoji there. Exciting looking at this lineup. Anything to build on this one, Frank?
I mean, it's the same sort of thing again. It's having the sort of little triangle in midfield of your six, Gibbs-White and Bergvall is important, as I say, because you've got that double pivot, which Ryan's made clear here, and I've said about quite a lot. Because you've got that double pivot, it allows Porro freedom, it allows you Dodgy freedom, it allows Gibbs-White or whoever the 10 is freedom, Kudus, Tell, Solanke. And it allows one of the double pivot actually a bit of freedom at times as well, because you've always got another one. Whereas last year, as I say, and I don't want to keep going back to last year because it is in the past now, we're changing it, but it's an easy comparison to make. That last year, so often you had no freedom if you were Bentancur playing on the 6 because no one else was actually around you, but then you still had to go and do other jobs and you were controlling a whole midfield on your own. And we got caught out a lot because of it. Now you've got that sense of freedom and that lack of hope. Sorry, that not lack of. Hopefully, they build up a trust in each other as well. I mean, that's why it's probably important to not. I worry a little bit if on the first day of the season you've got two of your midfielders brand new players, and so all of a sudden you start with Bergvall, Gibbs-White, and I don't know, Douglas Luiz in your midfield in the first game of the season. Three that have never actually played together or done that role together. So I'm a little bit early on. because I think it's a role and that midfielder in this system is one that requires trust and requires experience together. Thomas Frank's never actually started at a club very well. Not to put it down or anything, but he didn't win. I think he won once in his first 10 at Brentford, and he won none, I think, of his first 8 or 9 at Bromby. So, I mean, Brentford fans wanted him gone and sacked after a little while, and then he turned it around. And so I don't think the same is going to happen now, because I think Tottenham have got a good side, and I think he's also far more experienced now than he was then, which is seven or 8 years ago. But what it does show is that the systems that he's going to implement might take a bit of time, and so people need to probably temper their expectations a little bit. And if we're not top of the league at Christmas, then chill out. But yeah, I mean, as I say, that midfield is going to be one that's going to have to mature together, and it's going to be a young midfield, I imagine, because Gibbs-White's 25, 26. I could be wrong. I think he's about that. But Bergval's obviously just turned 19 in the last couple of months. Gray's just turned 19 in the last couple of months. Sar's still young. If they go for Wharton or whoever, that it's going to be a young midfield. Kudus is still 24. Tell's 19, 20, whatever he is. It's a young side, and it's a side that under Thomas Frank, I think, will mature together and learn together. But it might take a little bit of time.
100%, a little bit of time, but time spent tomorrow against Reading in the first pre-season friendly. Hopefully we get a good result, but at the end of the day, it's more about Thomas Frank being able to experiment with these players and see what they really have on offer. But guys, before you all jump off and before we end the live, please do me 3 massive favors. Smash the like on the video. Smash the notifications on so you never miss us going live. We're going to be going live and doing a video again on Sunday. And subscribe to SpursRelated if you are new as well. That would be most appreciated. I hope you guys all enjoyed the Ben Jacobs stream yesterday. Go and check that out if you haven't done so already. Lots of exclusives. We actually got a couple of bombers from him, which is absolutely unbelievable, including about João Gomez and a couple others, number 6s. And that's my last question for you guys before you'll click off is, who will our next signing be? And Morgan Gibbs-White doesn't count, by the way. But who do you think we will sign at the end of this window or before the window ends that will complement Thomas Frank's setup for the new season? So let me know in the comments below. If you're watching on repeat, smash your like, smash subscribe, smash the notification bells on. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's stream. Obviously, a couple of technical errors. We are, very sorry about that. These things do happen, but hopefully we can get Ryan back on the stream very, very soon. And guys, we'll do a tactical analysis breakdown of that Reading match on Sunday. So look forward to that. Turn your noties on so you never miss the video. And as always, come on, you Spurs. Come on.